listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach specializing in helping people who are having affairs decide what they want to do. On this show, we feature coaching tools from my practice that can help you in challenging relationship situations, as well as advice from other professionals who help people with relationship-related matters. This podcast draws from different philosophical traditions, different approaches to understanding the human condition, and different types of professional assistance that can be helpful to people in complicated relationship situations. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Mark Anthony Haviland of Beyond Bodywork. Mark has had a thriving bodywork practice in San Francisco for the past 20 years, and although he's an amazing bodyworker, he's a lot more than just that. Mark's clients call him a soul whisperer because of his deep understanding of the way emotion shapes our experiences of living in our bodies. You can learn more about Mark and his work at beyondbodywork.com. Before we begin, here's our sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by Marie Murphy, PhD. That's me. I provide shame-free, blame-free, non-judgmental relationship coaching. You can talk to me about the things that seem too messy or weird or stigmatized to share with your best friend or your spouse or even your therapist. If you want to talk, schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. So, hi, Mark. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, Marie. It's a pleasure. Most assuredly a pleasure.
One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is that I used to be a body worker. And so I, too, am aware of the importance of recognizing the relationship between the mind and the body and the importance of learning how to relate to our emotions as physical experiences. And I talk with my coaching clients about this, but these days, all of my coaching happens via Zoom. And so although we talk about this stuff, there's a certain, level that we can't really get beyond. I'm certainly not touching any of my clients these days. I'm certainly not guiding them through physical practices that can help them disperse emotion as physical experience or really get into it. So I'm excited to talk with you about this stuff and your professional take on these things. But before we get into it, is there anything else you want listeners to know about you at the outset of this conversation?
Well, I think the main thing would be we are in this very unprecedented time with so many things happening.
Hang on, let me just interrupt real quick. So we're recording this in late August of 2020. Enough said.
Enough said. Yeah, thank you. That's important because who knows, whoever's listening to this, whenever that might be.
Yeah.
So we are in a very unprecedented time, and we have so many things happening externally, and we find ourselves in this pressure cooker, whether we're isolated or quarantined, and you have to face yourself. So I think on the onset of this conversation, we have to make sure we know our surroundings before we go into the inner exploration of what emotions are, the body, the psychological, the psyche, the spirit, all those things combined. The environment really does affect us in such profound ways, and how we are with ourselves and those, of course, most intimately around us. So I think I would just like to start with that. As far as me, we can get into that as we move through the conversation. But I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And for me, you mentioned in the beginning about the mind and the body, and how I see the body is a physical manifestation of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
There is no separation.
Yeah.
We're so programmed and domesticated in our belief systems of compartmentalizing the emotions, the spirit, the soul, the body, the sexuality, whatever, right? Relationships are over here and I go to work here. So there's so much compartmentalization that a lot of those aspects of ourselves aren't communicating with each other. And all those things are in the body. The only way we can experience anything in the physical world is by being embodied. And most of us are not in our bodies,
right.
Or in our heads.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the biggest stumbling block right there.
Yeah, totally. And I talk about this with folks too, because often, I'll talk with clients and I'll say, okay, like if you're experiencing anger, what does that feel like in your body? And people will say, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. And many of us are not even aware of our emotions as physical experiences. And most of us are not even that in tune with what's going on in our bodies. And we can say more about that. I mean, we could talk for probably 10 hours straight about that.
Easy.
But let's just, since this is a show about infidelity, let's talk about why infidelity can be such a great impetus to start to get to know our bodies in a different way and to start to get to know our emotions as physical experiences in a different way. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness, dear. That's a pot right there. Well, I mean, let's talk about infidelity. I mean,
Okay,
infidelity, let's just go there. Infidelity,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been up and around all that, been, cheated on, all the up and around the whole
Done
situation.
all the things.
I think we need to talk about how we're domesticated and what relationship actually is, and how we're kind of put into this mold of what relationship is, being with one person for your whole life, monogamy, all those kinds of things. I'm not quite sure if that's actually how we're wired. So then there's that. So are we really cheating on, quote unquote, our partner, or are we cheating on the confines of this cultural construct that we've been forced into?
Yeah, totally.
Right. So there's that. So I mean, there's so many different dimensions of this conversation and this experience that we have when we rebel against this confining thing.
Yeah.
So, and before we even talk about cheating on another person and agreements that we make, whether it be in a marriage or a relationship,
Yeah.
do we even really know what intimacy is? Okay, then there's
Yeah.
that.
No,
right?
so all of these things are so important, but let's back up a little bit. Let's assume that we're talking about somebody who values monogamy, which is fine and great. Not valuing monogamy is also fine and great, but that's another thing.
Right.
But let's say that you've been in a committed monogamous relationship. All of a sudden you find yourself in a relationship with another person. Let's talk about the emotions that can come up there.
Right. Well, the thing that comes to mind right away is this wonderful book called Searching for the Magical Other by James Hollis. And it talks about how we project this idealized version of what we want the relationship to be onto the other person.
Yeah.
And there's this, and the part of his whole study is called the Eden Project, where you project what it's like to be in the womb onto the other person. And that's never, ever going to happen. So we have to eat that projection. And that's very painful. Being in a relationship with another person is one of the most challenging things we can experience as a human being.
Yep.
And I think that the main reason it is that way is because we don't really have a relationship with ourselves. And that would go right back to the emotions that we have buried underneath the floorboards in our body, which have been there pretty much our whole lives since childhood. So your relationship with somebody right now, let's say you cheated on somebody or they cheated on you. Let's just go there since this is all about infidelity. Your relationship now is a manifestation of your relationship with your parents as a little kid. This is kind of basic psychology 101 that a lot of us are pretty familiar with these days because we're all studying on ourselves. So those things, all those emotions that never were able to be expressed as a child are stuck in your body. When we get intimate with somebody, the more intimate we get with somebody, the closer it gets to our core wound, which comes from our relationship with our parents. So those, if you want to look at your unconscious shadow relationship stuff, close your eyes, think about your parents' relationship, and then your relationship with each of them. And that's pretty much your template. And all those emotions, whether your dad was angry, you're probably going to go the other side of the spectrum and not be angry and not express those emotions. So we have these patterns that we inherit from our surroundings, let alone the epigenetic stuff, which is probably a whole other conversation. But all these things are play, and they're in our bodies.
Yeah.
So this is what's the challenging thing is, the more in love you get, the more intimate you get with somebody, that's when you get to do your work.
Right. Yeah.
The deep, deep work. You can't really do your deep work unless you're in relationship.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity. And you said messy in the beginning. Yeah, it's going to be messy if you're doing it right.
Yes.
My teacher, Dr. Fred Midtower, who's my bodywork teacher, has this saying. He goes, the message is in the mess.
Sure.
It's in the mess. Can you keep it together? Can you get a support system, which is, hello, what we're doing right here.
Here we are.
Here we are. Can we name it? Can we really get underneath what is the sabotaging unconscious mechanisms that are actually putting us in a position to, we want to break the container, even though the only way we can evolve is with a container. And that's the paradoxical conundrum that we are in when we're doing our deep psychological spiritual work, which happens to be when we're in relationship.
Yeah, totally. I love that you said something that you said a few moments back. I like to say that our relationship with our romantic partner or partners can be our greatest spiritual teacher. Because when we're in such intimate connection with another person, when we're so deeply invested in this connection with another person, we are confronted with ourselves in a way that few other opportunities in life present us with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to the East, in India in particular, which I've been to, the guru is there to reflect back to you your unconscious mechanistic behavior, right? Guru means dispeller of darkness, right? So when we're in the Western world, our minds aren't necessarily oriented that way, unless you're in California. But God help us. But but there is this most relationships are 90% projection, and I'm being generous. So,
Sure.
but we need the projection for it to come up from underneath the shadows so that we can actually see it. That's the opportunity. When we are unconsciously projecting the old patterns onto our partner, can we wake up in the moment and name it? Yeah. Whether it be you're angry and acting out, or whether it be you're shutting down and cold, or whether you're running away, or whether you're fighting, all fight, flight, freeze, all the different ways that we do it. Can we wake up in the moment? And that's the work for the rest of our life. Yeah. So I think the tools that you're offering here, Marie, and of course, definitely what I offer with my clients is, can we remember ourselves in the moment when the explosion is happening, or when the shutdown is happening? Can we wake up, and it's a lifelong practice, when these emotions get triggered in situation in life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
When we're in infidelity, when we're going other places to cheat or to get away or to escape, I think it's a very natural human thing. We want to run from the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk. Okay, so a couple of things here. One thing that you said a few moments back that I just want to really reiterate, which is so important, is that our relationship is essentially happening in our own minds.
Absolutely.
And every tradition teaches about this a little bit differently. The way I teach about it is I teach people to recognize that their partner is what they are. And it's our perceptions of our partner, or our thoughts about our partner, or our beliefs about our partner that create our feelings about our partner. And when we start to recognize that, we can find so much more freedom in our own experience of life, and also so much more joy and connection with our partner. But then you said something else that is such an important thing. And that's, sometimes infidelity, not always, definitely not always, but sometimes infidelity is all about getting away from difficult feelings, and specifically difficult feelings in your primary relationship. And there ain't no way you're always going to feel good in your relationship with your partner. It's just not the nature of the thing. But in our society, we get the message that it should be that way all the time. And that's the problem. The problem isn't that sometimes connection is challenging and confounding and painful and difficult. The problem is that we get the message that these things are really bad.
Right. And it is that kind of negative connotation or projection onto the actual emotion. And that,
Yes.
and I've been working with this for so long with of course, my own work and my own psychotherapy and relationships, and then being with clients, being with thousands and thousands of clients over the many years. It's like, it's a petri dish of self-discovery for myself. It's like every session is work for myself. And I know you know that.
Oh yeah.
And what a blessing. Hallelujah. And it sucks. Doing the work is awful, and it's amazing, and it's annihilating, and it's enlivening. It's all of that and more. That to kind of spin off what you were talking about, in especially in our culture, but I would say all over the world, except for maybe some indigenous tribes that are actually still connected to nature. We have a very small bandwidth of what is emotionally acceptable in society.
Yep.
Okay. If you're too sad, then you're depressed.
Yep.
If you're too happy, then you're high on something. So over the decades of living in life, whether it be in the family unit, school, work, your social realms, over the years, it gets whittled down to this very small percentage of what our human emotions are. So that's on top of when you go into a relationship. You're so squished in, and then you're going to get triggered with your primal core wound stuff with the relationship, especially if you're really like deeply connected and intimate and in love, and you're both doing your work and you both have support systems and you come together. Hello, you're going to get triggered. We want the trigger. The trigger allows us to be able to integrate the unconscious material that's stuck down there that we can't get to otherwise. So, and we spend so much time avoiding our pain.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because that is so, I think, central to the human experience, affair or no affair.
Right.
Let's talk about all the ways in which humans avoid their pain. I've got my own spiel, but I want to hear yours.
How much time do we have? I mean, name anything. You mean the technology, video games, technology, movies, whatever, phone, social media, food, exercise, too many fucking yoga retreats. Can we cuss on here? Is that all right?
Yeah, we can say fuck.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite words. So I mean, all the ways, and we can get so distracted, and it is so painful, the stuff that we've been carrying around for lifetimes, but really just in our own body experience. We want to focus on just what's happening in my body since I've come into this world, and the trauma that I have been inflicted upon me through all my parents' stuff, through the societal stuff. So the ways that, and it makes sense. Pain sucks. But the way I say it, the way I describe it to my clients and my students is, the more we avoid our pain, it's almost like what you're doing is you're actually just paying off the interest.
Yeah.
You're never getting to the principal. So if you're constantly just paying off the interest, that principal debt of that pain that happened 30, 40 years ago when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever happened, that's still in your system. And the more we avoid it, the more pain comes from that.
Right.
So for me, the only way to feel your pain is to feel your pain. The only way you can get through your pain is by feeling it. You have to go through it. And that's where the body work comes in. We do talk therapy, and most of my clients come in and talk half the session, and that's got to know what the heck's going on before I can even get you on the table. And that's where the body work comes in, because then you can put the elbow in the back of the heart, and you feel this particular pain that you can't get away from. And there's something alchemical that happens when the physical body gets touched in that way. Now, because we're in the pandemic and we're in quarantine, I've been working for the past 6 months, which has been a whole other conversation for my own well-being and how I navigate that. So what I've been doing is teaching people how to touch themselves in a conscious, informed, intuitive, educated way.
Yeah.
When you and be able to touch each other in a healing way rather than a sexual way or even a romantic way, affectionate way. To add this whole other component of touch creates a whole other intimacy, which can also trigger you. But again, you have another tool set to be able to metabolize the emotion that's stuck in the body that actually can create pain in the body.
Yes. Oh, so many things to follow up on
A
here.
lot.
First, let's
I know.
get the name of that course. It's called Anatomy of Emotion, right?
Yeah, the Anatomy of Emotion. It's a virtual course that Janet Stone, one of my dear friends, she's a yoga teacher, created. Actually, we filmed it back in December before any of this was going down. And I've been teaching it for years on the road in workshop form, 30, 40, 50 people in there and doing the body work in front of them and then teaching them how to metabolize the triggers and Qigong, self-care, self-massage, partner massage, meditation. And it's this 5-week course that we actually just finished, the live portion, but we're leaving it open for registration. And it's such a resource to be able to, for me, just personally, to be able to reach people and be of service to them without touching them is a quantum shift for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very much not my comfort zone. I mean, even doing this podcast, I mean, I can see you on my screen,
Yep.
but to not be physically connected like that is really out of my comfort zone. So
It's different.
it's very different,
Yeah.
but I love it.
It's cool. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. So it's another way for us to take care of ourselves because it's only going to get messier.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's for sure. So you said something so interesting there. So my work has evolved in various ways over the years. At times I've done body work. At times I still teach yoga. At times I've combined yoga teaching with body work, with coaching. And, so my session with a client used to be 3.5 hours, including touch, movement, and talk.
Mm.
And so shifting to here I am at the other end of the interwebs has been interesting in a lot of ways. But here's one of the things that I think we all need more help with in this moment that's been a particular professional interest of mine. And that is, how do we learn how to process our own emotions as physical experiences when there's nobody there to physically assist us in this process?
Well, sometimes the only way we can metabolize that emotion is if we are alone.
Yeah.
And there isn't somebody to project it onto, or for us to outsource our own intuitive wisdom, because we know how to take care of ourselves. When you stub your toe, what's the first thing you do besides say fuck? You grab grab it, you touch it, you hold it. Yeah. What's the first thing when your little kid hurts their knee? You kiss it, you touch it. We know touch is our first language. Yeah. We know, but we've been so domesticated over the many, many years to give our power away to the teacher, to the doctor, to the lawyer, to the priest, to the ... that we're just flailing around. When you get down and out to it, when you are isolated by yourself, you can't go to, which is where we've been the past 6 months, you really get to meet yourself.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that people, let's say when they take this course, and I'm getting feedback like, oh my God, I was doing that before. I'm like, exactly. You know what to do. You touch yourself in ways that's intuitively, it's this primordial wisdom that's come from the billions of years of evolution that's in our cells that we can connect to consciously.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh yeah. Let's kind of break this down in simplest possible terms for somebody who's just learning how to feel their feelings as physical experiences. I know what my first step is, but what's your first step? You're talking to a new client, they're dealing with anger and shame and grief and all kinds of things. What do you tell them first?
Well, first I tell them that what you're experiencing is valid.
Cool. Right
away. Right. Yep. This is verbally, right? And then normally, well, it's so challenging to even answer the question because it depends on the person. But if someone's coming in and they're saying they're really angry in their relationships and they're spewing, they get so triggered with their partner. Validating your experience is one thing because there's so much shame and guilt and judgment around the actual emotion that's coming out.
Right.
So, it's kind of like teasing out what actually is happening and what actually is the trigger. For me, anger is about boundaries. Too much, not enough. So, and all of what I would ask is, where do you feel it in your body?
Yep.
And then what I would say, put your hands there.
Yeah, put your hands
there. There's something about when you connect the emotion with the body,
yep,
and then you touch that part of your body. I don't care if it's your toe, your arm, your nose, your ear, it doesn't matter, right? Your stomach. Something on the subconscious level, on the cellular level, there's a connection happens. A circuit is connected where that part of you, let's say it's unconscious and it's this old emotion that you've been bagging around for so long and it hasn't expressed itself. And now it's finally able to rear its head. But you know why? Maybe because it's safe enough. You've done enough work. You've reached the right place in your life. You're in the right relationship that now it feels safe enough to be able to express itself. And if we can have a different relationship with our own selves, obviously, and we practice with another person, right? It's like everything external is a practice to have a relationship with God, which is basically ourselves, which is everything, right?
Right.
So I would say that. I mean, it's simple, and yet sometimes the simplest things are the things we forget the most.
True. So true. I love that. So I'm going to steal from you. Feel free to steal from me.
Absolutely.
What I start with usually is getting people to feel the weight of their bones in their body. I say, like find the connection between your seat and whatever you're sitting on. Find the connection between your feet and the floor. Breathe. Maybe if you can, sit up taller. And if you're listening right now, I hope you're doing this, by the way. Lengthen the spine. Notice that you are connected to the floor. Notice that you're supported by the floor. Notice that you're supported by the earth beneath the floor. There's a planet beneath you. You are connected to it. And yet you are also connected to the cosmos and you are free. And now, here's where I go from there, borrowing from you, Mark, is find the area of most sensation in your body and place your hands there. Now, here's another question for you. How do you work with folks who know that they're having a cognitive experience of a feeling, but don't know how to find the physical experience of a feeling?
Well, that's where the bodywork comes in. I think
Sure.
That's, even asana, doing yoga can do this as well. And again, because of our very unique situation, we're having to adapt and be very creative in how we take care of ourselves and how you and I as practitioners are able to accompany folks in this place. And it's very challenging because for me, if someone's really stuck in their head, I just get them on the table and literally stick an elbow in their back.
Yeah, right.
and make them scream, make them feel it. And there's something about feeling that pain. And it took me many, many, many years to be able to be with other people's pain.
Yeah.
And how I've been able to do that is because I've been able to be with my own.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it is about finding a way for you to be able to get to that spot behind the shoulder blades, whether you get that massage cane, get those massage guns and have your partner get you in the back, be able to get into quit talking about it and be able to get into some sort of an arrangement, a dance, a physical conscious exercise where you can take turns holding these probably very big boulders in your shoulders and neck and back. And be able to touch that, breathe into it, feel it. Sometimes the emotion is so underneath that you don't even know what it is. And sometimes it's an open wound and it's super tender. It's like when you have a cavity and you breathe in the cold air, it's so sensitive, which means your fuse is very short, which means you have a very short temper and attention span. So no matter what the other person's doing, you're going to get lit up.
Yeah.
Right. So no wonder you're going to want to go off and get some refuge somewhere else. It makes sense.
Right.
And it hurts. Either way, it's going to hurt. So if that's the case, then how can we be conscious in this whole process? Right. I mean, how can we have conversations, which is what you do, Marie, is you're able to get people to talk about it. And a lot of times for me in this whole process, it isn't necessarily about the action. I'm more curious about what are you saying to yourself when the lights are out it's quiet and you're alone. What's that tape saying? Are you beating yourself up? Are you judging yourself? Are you shaming yourself? Are you berating yourself? That's what I usually go in and focus on, is what's happening there, and where did you learn that? Because that is really what haunts us.
Absolutely.
And pushes us away from intimacy.
Absolutely. But not only where did you learn that, but where are you feeling it now?
Yeah.
And what are the consequences? What are the broader consequences of that in your relationship and your life?
Yeah. I mean, it affects everything. If you think about your relationship to intimacy, affects every aspect of your life, every quadrant. Okay. Family, friends, money, obviously sex.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting. You said something earlier that sparked something. This kind of came back around. The orbit came back around, and we're kind of peripatetic, which is wonderful to be able to share this way. Is this idea of relationship, and you're in this monogamous relationship, and I did air quotes, you can't see me, but monogamous relationship,
quote unquote monogamous,
right, whatever that might be for you.
Yeah.
And it's so intense, the intimacy is so deep, and the pain is so deep that we really do want to get away from that. And we go off and have a sexual experience with somebody that's very much surface, if you think about it. You're wanting to kind of come up for air. But how can we learn how to breathe underwater? How can we learn how to breathe there? It's a new, bringing the breath into the whole situation. Sometimes taking a breath when you're having an argument or getting triggered, that one breath gives you a second to metabolize the reaction, which is in your body. There's always a physical precursor to a trigger. So if when you're in a relationship and you're having an argument, when you get triggered, there's always a physical precursor, which means there's a physical feeling in your stomach, in your leg, in your heart, in your neck. So when that happens, can you remember yourself enough to take a breath in that moment, which obviously brings in oxygen, drops the shoulders. It seems, I know it's kind of cliche, but it's cliche because it's true, that always go to the breath. And it's the simplest thing. It's basically back to the basics. Taking a breath in those moments allows us to get into the body so that we can let that emotion move, because emotion, as you well know, energy in motion, emotion.
Yep.
If it's not moving, then is it really an emotion? It's stuck.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if the emotion is moving, then I think that's healthy. It might be painful, but sometimes the healing of a wound is actually more painful than the actual wound itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, what you say about pausing in the midst of difficult emotion, to take a breath and allow the physical feelings of the emotion to come. When we do that, I mean, some people say that an emotion lasts about 90 seconds. So if we allow the physical experience of an emotion to arise and then gather intensity and then dissipate, it lasts about 90 seconds. But here's the but. We usually continue to feed our emotions with our thoughts. Like if we keep thinking, my spouse doesn't love me anymore, my spouse doesn't love me anymore, my spouse doesn't love me anymore, the emotion that comes with that thought is going to continue. So it's not like you just feel the feeling and then 90 seconds later it's gone.
Yeah, no.
But it is about learning how to meet the immediacy of the physical experience in the moment, because the body only lives in the present moment. We can only encounter our bodies in the present moment, whereas our memories, we can plumb forever, ad infinitum, ad nauseum. And that, that's a whole other thing. But learning how to meet our experience of the moment and reckon with the physical components of that in the present moment instead of saving it for later is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's the most challenging place because our culture kind of teaches us the opposite. So we're kind of going against the grain, and and that's a whole other added challenge to what we're doing. And it's about building a muscle of being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How can you be uncomfortable, right? And there's another thing that there's a couple other things that's come through over the years, little nuggets that I've found in while I'm in the trenches of humanity is Leonardo da Vinci, who's one of my heroes, coined a phrase called confusion endurance.
Yeah, I love that.
Confusion endurance, because he was an explorer, he was an inventor, he was always exploring these realms of the human body, of the cosmos, of inventions. And when you're learning something new, you're always going to be confused. Okay, so can we build that muscle? And when you're confused, sometimes the only place you can actually be is right there, right here, right now. And we want to develop the response ability, the ability to respond to any given situation. And how we do that is kind of what you just said, is in the moment when that emotion comes and that when the thoughts start to go and, but he doesn't love me, can you name it right there and say, I'm feeling like you don't love me. While you're feeling the emotion, while you're in front of him or her.
Yeah.
And that is scary. And it's very uncomfortable. And of course, that brings in vulnerability, which we haven't mentioned yet. Vulnerability is the key to all of this. As you know, Brene Brown, hello, thank you, Brene Brown. Vulnerability is true strength. It really is true strength. And that's where intimacy comes from.
Yeah.
We when we're vulnerable in those moments and say those things that are repeating in our head, it actually gets it out. And it puts it out in front of you so that you can begin to metabolize it. And so you're not haunted by it or run by it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I work with folks a lot. Like, get it
Sure.
out of your head and onto some external form. Definitely.
And creativity is one of the most amazing things to be able to do. Write it down, get Play-Doh, get a box of crayons and paper. I don't care.
Yeah.
And it just for the creation's sake.
Yeah.
Do collages, do something, work creatively together. There's something profound about being, and it sounds silly, and it's also very simple. Again, I don't care how old you are and how long you've been in a relationship, if you're having these kind of issues in your relationship, which is why you're listening right now, can you remember how to play? Can you get into that 5-year-old, 6, 7, 8-year-old when you're lying on the living room floor with your little feet kicking up behind your head and you're drawing in a coloring book? Get a big, huge piece of paper, throw it on the floor. You each get your own crayons and just start drawing. It doesn't have to be anything. Just get color on the paper. Start getting the energies moving together. Create something together. There's something about the creative process that helps us metabolize emotion, and it gives it a whole other abstract way of expressing itself while you're feeling it together and naming it. Their magic can ensue.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I am a big believer of the magic of creativity and creativity in tandem with someone you care about.
Yeah,
for sure. I want to circle back to, we've touched on this, but maybe there are other things that it's important to say here. Why is cultivating a conscious relationship with our emotions so beneficial, not just for all aspects of our lives, but for our romantic relationships in particular?
Cultivating a conscious relationship with our emotions. Well, I really feel like the bridge for that's cultivating a conscious relationship with our emotions.
Yeah.
We have to feel them.
Exactly.
That's the bridge, right? And it is a practice, right? It's something in many ways that we're really not taught how to do.
Exactly.
And it's sad. But again, it's also an opportunity. And our generation right now, we have the world's traditions at our fingertips. We can get any sort of therapy or ayahuasca or mushroom journey, anything. We have it all right at our fingertips. So we have so many things that we can do and so much support that we can do, even in a pandemic, to be able to get the tools, to be able to develop the ability to authentically feel our emotions and have an agreement with our partner to be able to feel our emotions and name it as it's happening.
Yeah.
And you know, and not to take things personally, and know that 90% of our relationships are projection. So here's an idea: is in the ability of cultivating this new relationship with our true, authentic emotions, is have an agreement with our partner that we are doing that practice. And a lot of times, what I've noticed in my relationships, which have been many and learned so much,
Yeah.
is when I catch myself projecting onto my partner, my lover, I will catch myself and go, hold on. My dad used to say that to me. I'm totally projecting onto you. Just give me a second here. Okay. Let me say that again. Is to call yourself out in the moment.
Yeah.
Now, granted,
Totally. Yeah.
that takes a lot of practice, and it's very scary. On the other hand, if somebody's totally projecting onto you and they don't notice it, you go, hold on a second. I'm not sure who you think you're talking to, but nobody talks to me that way. Say that again so I can respond to you. That is a healthy expression of anger, which is about boundaries. So it's about having a different relationship with these quote unquote negative emotions: anger, judgment, jealousy, grief even. God bless. Grief has a negative connotation, when actually grief is you're actually having a healthy relationship to loss.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. There are, as we've already said, I mean, there are just so many negative societal messages about which emotions are acceptable and which ones are not. Which ones are okay in small doses, which ones are okay in large doses.
Right. And so that is a major challenge in any relationship, especially in the United States, all over the world, really, if you think about it. But so we have to, not only are we cultivating and curating a new relationship with our own emotions, but we're having to do that with our own container, which would be our life, our home, our intimate relationships. We're curating, we're actually inventing, pioneering even these new relationships, which is exactly, I think, what you're doing, Marie, is you're on the pioneering forefront of how do we curate relationships that are conscious, that I'm authentically expressing my emotions, that I'm feeling my emotions in my body. That the only way we can actually really be intimate is if we're in our bodies right now, right here.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So those are just some ideas. And another thing, my definition of happiness for myself, this is something I've come to and I'm continuing to, it's a working thesis, is to fully experience each of my emotions as fully as I can. That to me is happiness.
That's awesome. I love that.
So it's not about this idealized, oh, I'm always going to be happy and joyful. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. There's a great quote from Rumi's father. I can't pronounce his name, but Rumi's father was a great man. He was a great writer. And he wrote a book called The Drowned Book because it fell into a fountain and they saved it. But this jewel I share with as many people as I can. And this is the quote: "The wealth that we acquire in sorrow is what we spend in joy."
Love it.
Can we take that and conjugate it out into any emotion?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times if we really honor the emotion and we get out of the judgment or the negative connotation of that emotion and actually just authentically feel that emotion and express it in a healthy, contained, creative way, hello, that's it.
Yeah.
And we just keep doing that.
Yeah. I love that. And I would suggest that as an intention for anyone listening, if not to go full on into all of your emotions with equal enthusiasm, then at least to be willing to experience all of your emotions. And that intention can change your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And creating, you're basically creating a new container, which would be your relationship and your life, for this new way of being and living.
Yeah.
And there are lots of people out there doing this work. So you're not alone. And what I like to say is nobody can do your work for you, and you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Which is why we're here.
Yeah, actually, I think you're the first person who ever said this to me. You can't do it all by yourself, but you have to do it all by yourself.
Yes.
And I love that because it so aptly captures one of the many paradoxes
Absolutely.
of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Mark. This has been wonderful.
You're very welcome. What a pleasure. And again, it's scratching the surface on the tip of the iceberg. but it gets the conversation going, it gets the thoughts going, and the curiosity. It's all about curiosity, to be curious about yourself and what you're experiencing and how you can be more fully present for your life. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So remind our listeners how they can find you.
Beyondbodywork.com is my website. And on there, you can find links to the Anatomy of Emotion virtual course that we have up still probably until the middle of September.
Cool.
You'll still be able to register for it, and it's yours for life. You can keep it and go into it as much as you want and at your own pace. And it's something you can go back over and over again. There's wonderful, practical tools to take care of yourself physically, psychologically, emotionally, in relationship with partner massage, your own massaging yourself. And it's basically my life's work up to this point condensed into this 5-week course, which is, I'm in awe. And
amazing.
Grateful. Yeah.
Amazing. And do you have any idea when you're going to be able to see Bodywork clients again, or is that the great unknown? Sorry.
Soon, I hope. I'm really flirting with the idea of very slowly opening up and being very conscious. I'm very much leaning on the cautious side of things for all the obvious reasons, because it's so intimate. But I'm reformatting my vision of what my practice might be. And I might just do one client a day.
Okay.
Just keep it really super simple and clean and just do one. And I like the way that you have done your stuff in the past, doing 3-hour sessions of like talk, body work, physical practice.
Yeah.
That's yummy.
That's
I love that. So here we are cross-pollinating,
cool,
and inspiring each other. So yeah, so I'm still working on that. I would say the next couple of weeks I might, well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We never know.
You never know.
Well, thanks so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Marie. It's been a pleasure, and I wish everybody the best.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.